Hey, thanks for dropping in. On today's episode, we're making my marvelous midweek meatloaf. Now, depending on what you think of meatloaf, those three words may seem mutually exclusive. Hopefully you will think so by the end of this video. As always, the recipe starts with prep. In this case, we're blitzing up our veg and aromatics in our small but mighty food pro. There's actually too much to fit in here all at once, so we'll do this in batches. The use of the Food Pro is one of the reasons why I call this a midweek recipe, because it's faster prep. Personally, I actually prefer the veg chunkier, so you can see it in the finished loaf. That takes more time though, of course, because it requires precise chopping by hand. Maybe down the road I'll show you guys that second recipe. Once we're done with the blitzing, our veg looks like this. That's carrots, mushrooms, onion, and garlic, by the way. Nice and small, so it should fry up pretty quick. Which is what we're going to do next. In this pan, I've got a splash of both veg oil and olive oil, and we're going to tip our veggies in. We're going to fry this for 7-8 minutes until the veggies soften and take on a bit of color. It's been about 8 minutes, and our veg looks about ready. It's dried out quite a bit, which we want. We want it to release its moisture here in the pan, and not in the loaf when we're baking it, because that could make for a soggy loaf. Also, we've got some light caramelization happening, and caramelization, as you probably know, equals flavor, so that's great. At this point, we can hit it with some seasoning. Then I'll transfer this to a bowl to cool to room temperature. I'll see you again when it's ready. So here's our veg, cooled just about to room temperature. I spread it around a bowl to speed up the process. To this, we'll add our meats. Yes, meats, because like meatballs, meatloaf is always better when you use more than one protein. We'll start with ground beef. Then Italian sausage, without the casing. This is obviously already seasoned, and it'll give our meatloaf outrageous flavor. Next, we'll sprinkle in some Italian seasoning, as well as a pinch of chili flakes. We're using mild sausage, but if it was hot, we could skip this. Now some milk for moisture. And one egg to bring them all together and bind them. Next, panko breadcrumbs for structure and to lighten the mix. And finally, some seasoning, fresh cracked pepper and salt. Now we can go in and mix this. In case you're wondering, I'm not being precious by using a rice paddle. I don't have any gloves, and I've got a paper cut on my mixing hand, so I don't exactly want to plunge it into a pile of raw meat. We want to make sure everything's homogeneous and thoroughly combined, but we also don't want to overmix, because that could make our meatloaf tough and tight. Oops, almost forgot to add a dash of Worcestershire parents. That should do it. What we want is a mix that's moist but not super wet. We want it to be able to hold its shape. If it was too dry, we could always add more milk. And if it was too wet, we could always add more panko. But this looks pretty good. We're going to take a short break from the meatloaf to prep our baking tray. One thing that always drove me crazy about making meatloaf in the past was the pool of grease that always accumulated in the baking dish as it cooked. So the trick is to bake the meatloaf using a rack, a cookie sheet, and a bit of parchment paper. We'll crumple the parchment first, which will make it easier to spread and lay flat. The meat will sit on the paper, which will keep it from sticking to or falling through the rack. We'll punch several holes in the parchment so grease can drip down into the tray and away from our loaf. There, it's ready. Okay, back to our meatloaf. We're going to use this baking dish as a mold. I greased it ahead of time with some veg oil so the meat will hopefully just slide out. We're going to dump our meat in, then try to get it as flat and even as possible. We'll apply gentle pressure to lightly pack the meat down. We want to make sure there are no gaping holes in our loaf, but we also don't want to pack it down so tight that it ends up really dense. We can also give it a couple of good wraps on the counter. Once we're happy with it, we can turn it out onto our baking tray. This is no time to be scared, we just have to go for it. Looks like it might need some coaxing to come out. Or not. We'll tidy this up a little bit. Make sure the loaf is centered on both the parchment and the tray. Then it can go into a preheated 375 degree oven for about an hour, or until the internal temp reaches 160 F. That's going to give us plenty of time to make our glaze. And that starts with ketchup, to which we'll add some soy sauce for umami and salt. Then more Worcestershire, a good spoonful of brown sugar, and plenty of fresh cracked pepper. We'll stir everything together, then wait for it to come to a simmer. Alright, our glaze should be just about ready. Let's give it a taste. It needs a bit more sugar. It's nice and tangy, and it's got the salt. It just needs a little boost in sweetness. Once the sugar's melted in, we can cover this and set it aside until we need it. It's been almost exactly an hour. Let's check the temperature of our loaf. 160. We nailed it. Now we can add our glaze. We'll slather it on. Don't worry if it looks a little wet and runny, it'll tighten up under the broiler. We're going to do 2 coats, get a really nice lacquer effect. And this goes back in the oven on high broil for about 5 minutes. That may vary depending on the strength of your oven. Time for the second coat. Then back in the oven for a final couple of minutes. Any leftover glaze we can just bring to the table. And here it is, our marvelous midweek meatloaf. Hearty, filling, and totally delicious. Just a thing to power you through to the weekend. To finish, we can drizzle on some more of that sweet and tangy glaze. Apologies if this looks messy. Plating is not my strongest point. I assure you though, this tastes way better than it looks. Let's do the flyby. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. As always, comments are welcome, whether it's a question, suggestion, or just saying hi. I love to hear from you guys, so drop them below. See you next time.